your experience in Premier League, players are known to drink a lot. Is that really true?
There's definitely
Culturally, I feel like
there's a drinking culture in the UK. What I would say is that I think that's changed a decent amount now, but I will say, like, back in when I was playing, we would go out. You know, we would go out after games. We'd go out on a Sunday afternoon. We would, you know, maybe if we had a Wednesday off, we'd be out on a Tuesday night just for something casual. I drank in parties, but I would say once I realized that, like, it was affecting performance on the field is when I curtailed. But I never shied away from, like, the Saturday night. Like, that was my chance to go out and kind of unwind and blow off some steam.
But I feel like when you are young, you don't really have those effects. You know, there's maybe like between 25, 26, then it's when, like, okay, if I'm not treating my body right, then it's when I'm getting hit with it. But
I mean, even when I was in MLS, like, we partied, man, in Houston. It was like and we were the best team in the league. We won back-to-back championships, 06, 07. I tell some of the stories to some of the younger MLS players now. I'll find myself at a dinner setting or something in media, and, like, we'll be out sharing different stories, and I'll tell stories to these younger players of what we used to do back in the day, and their jaws are on the floor. And there's a combination, I think, of a little bit of envy and jealousy of, like, today, the reality is it's a society now where there's a different expectation of a professional athlete, and there's just so many more eyes on you at all times, and social media is such a bigger thing. So while I see the benefits of social media from a branding perspective for an athlete, I'm not actually very jealous of that from what the experience I was able to have. That I definitely, at least when I was in MLS, I didn't feel like I was under the constant watchful eye of the public, and that any mistake I made. And so I was still able to be a kid and be a 19, 20-year-old, 21-year-old, because in many ways as a professional athlete, I think you almost forego and bypass a stage of life that a lot of normal, quote unquote, people get to have in college. And you need to go through those experiences as a young adult to then mature, as you're saying, when you get to a 25, 26-year-old person, that you've had that, and now you're, like, more motivated and focused on kind of that, you know, achieving your career goals and whatever you want to do and building a family, and if that's for you, right? But, like, if you don't go through that, I think you're always constantly left wondering and wanting and seeing those experiences that other people have. So in many ways, I think about my experience and I'm like, man, we got to do some crazy shit that was a lot of fun, responsibly.
Any good story that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, I got so many. I'm trying to think, like, I'll have to go down memory lane here to think of, like, some of the, well, like in Houston, for example, we had a really good group of younger guys. I lived in the house with 4 other guys who are still some of my best friends to this day.
Love it.
It was basically a frat house. A fair amount of us, like, played in the team, but we weren't, like, always the key starters and the biggest players, because we had, you know, Dwayne De Rosario, Brian Ching, like these really big guys. But then we had this young group of guys, and we called ourselves, like, we had, like, the Sunday Fun Day group. So we would play on a Saturday night. We'd go out Saturday night, but then Sunday we had these, like, theme days where we would start at a bar at, like, 10, 11 in the morning. We'd have brunch, and then we would just party all day until, like, nighttime. And whatever the theme was, somebody would pick it. So we would say, like, double popped collar polo day. So we'd all wear the same thing, sunglasses, and we'd, like, head out and we'd bounce from bar to bar. One of the times, Bobby Boswell and we wanted to be Rockets power dancers. So, like the hype crew. So we dressed in Rockets, Houston Rockets, like, basketball jerseys. And I had a basketball, mini basketball net around my neck, and he would have the basketballs, and we'd go around the bar, and, like, he would just go and find any female or whoever at that point and be like, hey, if you make a shot from my buddy Stu, who's standing 30 yards away, we're going to buy you and all your friends drinks. So, like, I'd be standing there with a hoop around my neck, and he'd, you know, all these people now would be trying to shoot basketballs. And, like, it just we became the life of the party in any given bar that we were at. And then by the end of the night, we'd be at this bar called Escobar, and we'd have, like, a table and basically, like, 50 people that we'd met throughout the day. And it would just be, like, this giant party. And then everybody around Houston knew, like, every Sunday the Dynamo Boys would be out
Wow.
partying somewhere. And like, imagine today's MLS.
Yeah, no,
like,
it wouldn't be possible.
you get absolutely annihilated by your coach. Now,
when I was in Barcelona, I came early to MLS. It was one of the early ones. Usually people would come here and retire, right? And I was 19, 20. And I remember just what we were talking about, the public eye attention. Barcelona, 24/7, whatever you do, whatever you go, people recognize you. You are under the microscope all the time. If you lose, it's like, be careful, you cannot go out. And I came here, it was like the total opposite. And we were talking about like 2012, right?
Yeah.
But it changed a lot from now. And with social media, it's definitely like all of a sudden you can be in one wrong video and your career is done.
yeah. When you were at Sporting, though, it felt like that culture, that team had a real like accountability to it within the locker room.
Yeah.
Peter, I know the way he coached also similarly, I think in some ways to Dom Kinnear, and where Dominic Kinnear had like an internal policing and he empowered leaders to still check guys. And I had that, and our group had that in different moments from, Pat Onstadt, Wade Barrett, like the De Rosario, Ching, guys who still would like have fun, but would tell you when you cross the line.
Correct.
Because we knew still at the end of the day, the most important thing was the team and what happened on the field.
Correct. I think what he did really good was like put the team first.
Yeah.
Rather than having stars. And when we look at the 2013 when we won the MLS Cup, we didn't have like that DP that is known worldwide. Everybody knew what to do. Obviously, we had Graham Zusi, Aurelian Collin, all of these guys, but like not like big names like Henry and all of those. And one thing that I really liked when I arrived, he said, "Listen, Uri, you can do whatever you want as long as you perform me on the field."
Mm-hmm.
And then I would see Aurelian Collin, another European from France. They put me on the same room with this guy. He was never on the room. He was always out here and there. But when it was time to play, he was one of the best. And as you said, if you cross the line here and there would be all the veterans telling you, "Hey, don't be late at this, don't be late like that. We have a lot of freedom. We don't want to lose that. So you might as well do what you have to do. If they say you got to arrive this time, you got to be there."
Yeah. I think the biggest...
But that accountability, I really liked. And I feel like with the years going by, I've seen that the young players, they don't respect it as much as the veterans, and they don't take as much shit as we used to take.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I think within that, you learn boundaries. And the biggest lesson I would say that I learned in my career was balance, and trying to find the balance between performing on the field, relaxing off the field, getting away from it sometimes because you feel so much pressure on a consistent basis to perform, to train. When you're not playing well off the field mentally, you're all over the place. So I think for every player, it's trying to find what works for you. And I do think with you, the younger generation, I think now feels a little bit more entitled to where they feel like they've earned it at a younger age without having to go through certain steps of almost like a rite of passage, because there's this entitlement of like, well, I've made it, I'm playing, you have to respect me, as opposed to like earning your keep within a team to find your voice, to be a certain personality. And I'm not saying that they're wrong in certain moments, but there still is, again, it's a rite of passage of you have to earn that respect from your teammates, not outside the locker room. Inside the locker room is the most important. And sometimes I think the culture within a team gets hurt because you have guys that don't respect it. And that comes to me from not strong leadership within the team. And sometimes that comes from coaches not being able to, trying to police every moment and not allowing leaders to lead. And to me, that's the type of coach I always resonated well, was a coach that, like Vermees, like Kinnear, like Owen Coyle, could empower their leaders to lead to where their voice could be most impactful in tactics and in big moments. Because if it's always coming from the coach, it's like I think about even parenting my kids. If I'm yelling at them all the time, that time that I really need to yell, I don't think it's going to have as much of an impact, as opposed to like they have to make mistakes, they have to learn on their own. I'm not going to be there at every single moment in their life to tell them, you can't touch that, that's hot, you're going to burn yourself. They got to burn themselves. around the hot pan to know I can't do that anymore. You know, I think we overparent these days as much as coaches try to overcoach.
Right.
And it's, it's so much of society. I just think in general with the access that we have now to social media.